figure within the country's political circles, long-serving member of parliament for the Swami constituency since January 1997. He's also the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. My guest, Honorable Osei Mensah Bonsu. Thank you for joining us. Your other name, Lawrence, we rarely hear you or never hear you use it.
It's not my other name. It's a name that I patched more than 30 years ago. It was given to me by my brother, who was ahead of me, much ahead of me, in secondary school. But entering secondary school sixth form, I wanted to change it to use my own names. I was named by my father as Osei Mensah Bonsu. My father is Kyei. But because he was born on an Awukudai, I think he lost the Kyei, and people called him Kweku Adai. So I used to bear the name Adai in primary school through to secondary school. But when I joined the movement called the Students' Movement for African Unity, and we began to learn a bit about negritude, that's about blackness, the concepts of black power, I thought that I needed to go back to my roots. So I attempted to change the name in the sixth form. It didn't work. At the university level, I succeeded in doing that. And I've ever been known as and called Osei Mensah Bonsu. Anyway,
that's an interesting revelation. Now you are not just the majority leader, you're also Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, very involving duties, the two. How do you combine them?
It's not been easy as the majority leader and leader of government business, and if you like, the leader of the house. You wear several hats, and then minister responsible for parliamentary affairs. The majority leader, if your party controls the executive, is the leader of government business. And if you are the leader of government business, in order to be able to have a buy-in and be able to convince and persuade the people that you lead to understand government policies and programs, you must necessarily be part of the shaping and evolution of government policies and programs, which explains why elsewhere majority leaders are prime ministers in some jurisdictions, and in other places they are senior ministers, because you should have that overarching authority over even the ministers as well, because you are the receptacle of government policies and programs insofar as they are ferried through to Parliament. And so you should have that influence to be able to gather your people, be in daily communication with your colleague ministers, and be able then to champion the cause of government in Parliament. And so it explains why the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs doubles up as a Minister of State.
And there are those who think that we do not need, in fact, when you were named as Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, that was one of the arguments that came up. We don't need a ministry in charge of parliamentary affairs and a minister for that matter, because the majority leader can perform the same function without necessarily naming someone, specifically yourself, as Parliamentary Affairs Minister.
I think I've told you even before you asked the question, the need for that. You could be a majority leader. You could be the leader of government business. How successful a leader of government business would you be if you are not part of the crafting of that government business in order to give you that understanding, in order for you to be able to, when you preside over your caucus meetings, to be able to convince and persuade your own members in Parliament. Much more to also have the whole house have a buy-in into government policies and programs. You yourself should be able to understand it first. And that's why you need to be part of it. Besides, as the leader of government business, if your other colleague ministers are not in the house, you should be able to hold the fort for them. Fancy the situation where you are not part of it. You don't understand it. You are not part of the crafting and the evolution of the policy and program. So it comes to Parliament, you are disabled. You remember when Bagbin was the majority leader and he was not a minister? Even when a minister was not in the chamber, he couldn't lay a government paper on behalf of the minister because he was not clothed with that authority. And sometimes most times, he had to look over his shoulders to see if there were other ministers.
And so that's what this actually cures.
It cures that. I've told you what it does. And I'm saying that in the House, it has this additional advantage that you are able then to ferry government policies and programs on your own to the House in the absence of the relevant ministers.
Let's still focus on matters relating to Parliament and, of course, as majority leader. One of the key concerns that the minority in the House, led by Haruna Idrisu, have raised over the past 3 months or so has to do with what they see as the biased posture of the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Kyei. Is that the case?
I don't see that at all. The other day, a member in leadership rose up. He wanted the Speaker to recognize him and give him the opportunity to speak. The Speaker, unfortunately, did not recognize him. I, as the leader of the majority, as a majority leader and leader of the House, got up on 3 occasions. The Speaker did not recognize me. There are occasions that these things happen. And it's not Speaker Kyei who has done this, who is the first to have done this, not recognizing the majority, the leadership. I remember when we first came, there were 2 occasions that, the Honorable J.H. Mensah, the then leader of the minority, got up and he wasn't recognized by Justice Annan. I think on the 3rd occasion, the minority leader was incensed. He got up, he stood there for about 5 minutes. The Speaker would not recognize him. So he left. He left the chamber. And with that, the rest of us followed in town. These things happen. Under the immediate past Speaker, as a minority leader, there were occasions that I got up and I did not catch his attention.
Duajahu. And you had reason during his tenure to complain about, his posture. So you thought he was partisan.
I did. But, because of Ajahu's age, because we were colleagues and contemporaries, I'm talking about age-wise, when he has done that and he's leaving the chamber, he will signal to you that, let's meet. You go and he has a way of massaging you, Jack, I didn't call you because I didn't want problem. I mean, it becomes personal. Sometimes you disagree, but because of his posturing, maybe you allow that. It is different with the speakers who are aged, like Speaker Kyei, like Alajiti, who was much older than us. I mean, that comradeship, that camaraderie is usually missing because of the age difference. So, but talking about the fact that because of that one could say that, oh, the man is partisan, I don't think so at all. There was an instance, remember, that when my colleagues, the last time they summoned Parliament to meet, they caused the Speaker to summon Parliament to meet in the case of the so-called Kyei for Seats saga, right? Technically, the motion that they filed was incompetent. I raised the matter, right? And the Speaker sustained my point of view, and yet he bent backwards to say that, okay, even though it's an incompetent motion, which technically maybe I shouldn't have accepted, but I have accepted it because I don't want the world to perhaps think, not knowing what might have informed my thinking. I don't want the rest of our compatriots in Ghana think that I didn't want you to make your point. That is why I invited you.
But isn't interesting?
Can I finish? So he says to them that, so you go and amend the motion. When the speaker suspended sitting, my colleagues did not even have the courtesy of going to the speaker, much less to amend the motion. So when we came back, I asked the speaker, what's the status? Have they come to see you? Have they amended the motion? He said no. And I said, Mr. Speaker, then in that case we are back to ground zero. If the motion is incompetent as we sustained it, then it cannot be moved. Right? And yet the speaker said, notwithstanding, so that the people of this country would understand, can we set up a committee? Which is the committee that came out.
Yeah.
Compared to what happened at the Honorable Duajahu's time.
And we saw it.
Yes.
But my question.
He came, can I just conclude on that?
Yeah.
He came, he responded to the signatures that were submitted to him and invited Parliament to come and sit. When we came, he did not allow us to move the motion. And yet, he went ahead and ruled against us. Can you rule on anything that is not before you? Because he did not allow us to move the motion, it meant that technically there was nothing in the house. And how could you rule on nothingness? That was a difficulty. But then the speaker is a person charged with authority, the singular person charged with the admissibility of questions, including motions and statements. So he says that in that regard, what I've done should tell you that I was not going to admit that motion. They raised issues, we left. Nobody insulted the speaker. That he's a tyrant like Idi Amin. We should mind, if we want to be respected, you should respect others.
Talking about debates, in the past you've had cause to complain and raise concerns about the quality of debates, the quality of people entering Parliament now, or more recently. Has anything changed?
I honestly think that as a country, we should be looking at the quality of people that are coming to Parliament. Increasingly, if we must admit, I think money is too much taking center stage in our politics. Today, if you are a certain member of Parliament, or even if you want to show interest to become a parliamentary candidate within your own party, the parties allow what is called primaries. And the primaries, if you have to go and face the electoral college, that is, in my own party's case, the polling station executives, you would realize that many of them position themselves just to receive drinks and cola from contestants, be they aspiring members of Parliament or even within the same party as leaders of the party at various levels, constituency executives, regional executives, national executives, right? They position themselves and then ask, oh, so Penny was so behind, so person regional chairman, this man wants to be the regional chairman and is coming to see us. What drinks is he offering us? Is that the way to, advance the cause of our politics? The Constitution provides for political parties to sell their ideas and programs and projects to the electorate. Who should do the selling? Who should do the marketing? It's those people out there that we call the polling station executives. I think my colleagues in the NDC call theirs branch executives also. It is they who are supposed to do the canvassing. And yet for 4 years, they don't do that. Some of them even don't hold meetings to let people know what is happening in the party. So immediately they are designated as polling station executives. I'm not saying all of them, some of them, and I would dare say majority of them. They just go and sit down, cross their legs and fingers, and wait for whoever is coming for the regional chairman, regional secretary, constituency chairman, constituency secretary, parliamentary candidate, right, national chairman, or even presidential candidate. So it's like some people look at the quality of your drinks before they allow you to go and represent them. Is that how to build parliament? And yet, the functions of parliament, and for that matter, of members of parliament, are cut out there. They are the representational functions. You represent the constituency, you represent the constituents. You take their concerns to the National Assembly, the parliament. So people come to you, you listen to them. You should be able to tell, this man is much more intelligent than this person. And not look at their drinks. So it's the representational function. And then we deliberate on matters that come before us. If a matter is from Zuarungu, is from Swami, if from Tema, if from Zema, I must be able to apply critical thinking on it and deliberate on the issue before us. Because even though I might come on the wings of the Swami constituency in the name of MPP, the moment you come to parliament, you represent the entire country. And so if anything happens there, you should be able to apply critical thinking. If you are doing a bill, you should be able to apply critical thinking. So the deliberation, if it comes to that, those of them who are appearing before us, we 4 contestants, who has that quality brain to be able to do this? Do people probe into that? The other thing is financial control of parliament. The government will submit a budget to you. Parliament is the gatekeeper of the national kitty, the national purse. The executive, come with application to you to enable them to spend the nation's money in 1, 2, 3 areas. Are you able to analyze it well, right? To understand, to go to your constituency and explain to them, this is what you should be doing. The financial control or power of the purse function of parliament. Then we have oversight function. After we have given them the resource, we must step back to see when the budget is rolling out, whether or not the government is applying the resource that you have given them on the areas that they said you're going to spend the monies on. And if indeed they have even spent them on the areas, whether as a country we have value for money. And then we have the legislative function of parliament. So I'm saying that the functions of parliament are cut out there for parliament and for members of parliament. So people appear before you. Do the citizens, the electorate, do they apply themselves to these, other than in many instances the electorate that is in that community asking, oh, now and somebody or the buy, saying or the other. Is that building our democracy? Are you satisfied with the material you have on your side as majority leader, the quality of material you have as MPs? Well, what we have now in Parliament today, I must admit that we suffer some weakness today. Because in the main, so many of us who came to Parliament have been taken out and been made ministers and deputy ministers who don't usually have time to come and participate in the business on the floor of the House. We keep telling them that they should manage their time such that they should be able to have time to come to Parliament, to participate in the business of Parliament, then go later to their offices to work. For many of them, it's become very difficult. And so, to that extent, to that extent, we suffer some weaknesses. But what I have alluded to, that in general terms, people coming, banging doors, coming to, oh, this man has been there for 2 terms, he's been there for 3 terms, but is that his father's property? Let another person come. They forget that Parliament. It's like wine. The older, the better. I should say, generally speaking, the older, the better. Because, indeed and in truth, there are some members of Parliament who have served 3 terms, 4 terms.
Some would say this is an argument to promote more quote-unquote Mugabes in Parliament. You yourself have been called the Swami Mugabe. Alban Bagbin, he's been called Mugabe as well. But again,
in the U.S. Senate, go there, you see that the average tenure of a member there is 24 years. The average. What it means is that people are able then to serve 40, 48 years and so on. I think the last time we went there was one person who had served about 48 years, which is more than twice the number of years that I've served in Ghana. But I don't know whether in Ghana, after the Backbends and the Mensah Bonsus, whether you be able to see people who will be able to scale over 20 years. Because the pressures, the demands, the expectations, and the accusations, sometimes they get under your skin, such that if you are not careful, you may act on the spur of the moment to say that, oh, I've had enough.
You've had enough.
But at the peril of Parliament, at the peril of democracy in Ghana. It's not about protecting Mugabes. It's about culturing experience, intelligence, knowledge to affect the quality of business in the house. That should be the concern of all of us. It shouldn't be the concern of somebody called Kyei Mensah Bonsu. It should be the concern of all of us. Unfortunately, I should add that this whole phenomenon is emerging because of what we do in the various political parties. I keep saying this, and I will insist today that there is no party in the entrenched democracies, mention them, Canada, US, Great Britain, Germany, Holland, Sweden, Norway, Italy, Australia. In the advanced democracies, there's nowhere where at the end of the life of a parliament, the sluice gates of parliament are opened to allow for all comers. It doesn't exist anywhere. Today I was having a chat with one of my colleagues, the Honorable Okujetua Blakwa. And I was telling him that in the UK, for instance, the Speaker of Parliament, who is a member of Parliament, in his backyard, he's not contested by the opposition members of Parliament. You think it can apply here? People will not agree.
To apply, certainly.
People will not agree. Unfortunately or fortunately, our Speaker is not a member of Parliament.
It's not a true tenet of democracy. Democracy should allow anyone interested to contest.
That is what we don't understand. Democracy everywhere is guided and guarded. In Australia, for instance, in any serious debate, if a division is to be applied, if voting is to be applied, and for whatever reason, some serious reason, the majority leader is not in the chamber to participate in the vote, the minority leader will not vote. They have some terminology they call crossing out, because they know that if the majority leader is to vote, regardless of maybe sometimes individual positions that may be taken by some of his own backbench, the majority leader is supposed to lead government's own agenda. The minority leader is to perhaps oppose it, and he's going to lead his own troops to oppose it, vote against it. But to the extent that the majority leader is not in the chamber because he's on government business outside the chamber, the minority leader, in deference to the majority leader, will not participate in the vote. So they cross themselves out. Here, people will say that it's my democratic right to vote. We should not be weeping more as sympathizers more than the bereaved. Let's not pretend that we understand democracy more than those of them who brought parliamentary democracy to us.
Also brings to mind a very interesting conversation, and you've run as in your party's primaries, at least since you entered parliament in 1997. Are you a beneficiary of the system where we essentially have monetized politics at that level, at the branch level, at the constituency level? You essentially have to pay delegates to, well, is it transport, some money, once they come to the Congress, the primaries? Have you had to pay delegates money under those circumstances?
Which delegates?
Primaries.
My own primaries.
Yes.
Oh, well, fortunately for me, since 1997, when I first contested, there has never been any contest. In 2000, I was returned unopposed. It's not as if people did not come to contest me. People came, but I think they were disqualified. They didn't have the relevant capacities to have entered the fray, so they were disqualified. I think 2 of them. Then 2004, we had I think 2 persons, and the 2 of them, one of them was disqualified. There were 3. Then the other stepped down. So they had just 1 who showed interest to contest. But then after the vetting, I think a day after the vetting, he wrote to signal that he was no longer interested. That was 2004. So again, I went unopposed. 2008, as people came to contest, again, I think 2 of them, and the 2 of them again ended up being disqualified because for whatever reason they would not come with the relevant documents. 2012, a similar thing happened, and again I went unopposed. So I've had the benefit of running unopposed for 4 consecutive terms. 2016, apart from 1996, was the first time that I came to be contested, or should I say, it was the first time I came to be contested as a sitting member of parliament in my primaries. And as you saw, 3 people came up, and fortunately, I emerged triumphant.
And
for the first time, I witnessed this.
At the primaries.
I witnessed this, yes, because we went round, and
anywhere
you went, you had to pay some drinks.
Money.
Some drinks.
Money.
Drinks, I've said.
You gave them money or drinks?
I gave them drinks.
You never gave money?
Well, sometimes you go to a funeral, right? And you have to offer a donation. You must give drinks. You don't have, sometimes it's like, because you need to return the bottles and so on. So can I give you the money so that you go and buy your own drinks? These things happen. Are
you not guilty of the complaint you make about what affects the quality that comes in the house? Are you not a beneficiary of the system, the monetization of our own politics? The excuse politicians give most of the time is for transport, is for drinks.
I'm saying to you that, I mean, traditionally, if a stool becomes vacant and you want to visit the kingmakers, you go with drinks. If you are up north, you go with cola.
These are delegates.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They are the kingmakers.
This could influence them some way, somehow.
To the extent that they are the kingmakers and queenmakers, I should say. You have to approach them and show respect.
This could influence them, you admit?
I don't know what you mean.
Influence the direction of their vote.
It depends on what you do. If people lobbying, for instance, in parliament is accepted, right? If you lobby politicians, if you lobby parliamentarians, it's accepted everywhere else. But the lobbying could translate into corruption depending on the intent, one, and the quantum of payment. For instance, if there is something to be considered, I go to Kofodia, as you usually go to, and you are going to consider something. Now from here, from Accra to Kofodia, I go with my vehicle. I go with my personal security. I go with my driver. And you tell me that, okay, because of where you have come to, you are going to spend one night. Can I give you 1,000 for your hotel accommodation, and then also to cater for your bodyguard and your driver? And you take it, is it corruption? No. But if you give me 10,000, knowing that my bodyguard is going to lodge in a hotel that may cost 150, the equally so for my driver, then you are giving them 100 cedis each to feed themselves. And maybe I'm going to a hotel that I may have to pay about 300, 400. You give me 100 cedis to feed myself. That, the 1,000 cedis is reasonable. But
so
if you give me,
was not enough to influence delegates.
No, I'm saying so. But if you give me 10,000, then it means there's something behind the donation that you are giving me. That gift certainly can be counted as.
Tell us how much are you willing to share? How much you gave the delegates in 2016? Are you willing to share?
I'm not too sure.
Interesting. Sure. But tell me, as a politician, one of the most influential political figures in this country, has anyone ever tried to influence you with money, bribe, to corrupt you? Has that ever happened?
I don't remember.
It may have happened, but you don't remember.
No, I don't remember. I don't remember anybody coming to me and attempting that. I live a strict life, quite apart from everything. And you know, in Ghana, until just about a month and a half ago, I was the local chairman of the group that is called APNAC, that is African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption. I was the chairman of the Ghana Parliament chapter. In Africa, the whole of Africa, I was the continental chairman. And in the world body, which is called GOPAC, Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption, I was, until 3 months ago, the vice chairman, the global vice chairman. And we have our own code of conduct. I will not ever engage myself in that.
Can never. You are incorruptible. That's the case. That's what you're saying.
It's only God who is incorruptible.
You are not.
No, you never know. I mean, you want to apply yourself to rigid rules, but you don't tell yourself that I'm incorruptible. It's for people out there to judge you by your conduct, to say that this man is incorruptible. You don't blow your own horn to say that I'm incorruptible. I try to live to a strict code, and I believe by God's grace I've been able to live by that demonstrably.
We're having a conversation earlier about some of the very trending conversations recently. One of them relates to the double salary saga involving some members of parliament, also ex-ministers in ex-President John Dramani Mahama's administration. When that matter came up, it emerged that a private conversation had taken place between the minority leader Haruna Idrisu and President Akufo-Addo. The minority leader had reason to question why you would put out those details of those conversations with the president. You thought that was appropriate to have discussed that publicly?
I didn't put out details.
The details relating to the fact that at least they had attempted to ask the president to intervene. Those were details of the conversation.
I don't know what you mean by details. It was the general issue that I raised. I didn't talk about details.
Was it proper to have put that out?
What is improper about that?
The minority leader.
What is improper about that? Look, in any cultured democracy, the minority leader should have access to the president. I didn't have that benefit.
You never had access?
I didn't have that benefit of President Mills calling me to meet me one-on-one. I never.
Not even once?
Not even once. Not even once. Not even my own friend and colleague, John Dramani Mahama, when he became president.
You tried reaching out to him? You tried meeting
on a couple of occasions? On a couple of occasions, I said to him that it's important where we are going as a nation that he increase pace for us to dialogue on critical issues. It never happened. It never happened.
And even ex-President Mahama.
That's what I'm saying. President Mahama. It never happened. Look, anybody who observed his presentation of his last message on the state of the nation, President Mahama, when he finished and he was greeting us, he got to me, he stayed there for some time. I told him something, and it had to do with these matters. He stood there momentarily and then said something to me in response to what I had said. He recognized that it wasn't good enough, but it had gone, right? I, with the presidency of President Akufo-Addo, who himself is also a former member of parliament, and I've reminded him that it's important that he increase pace to meet us all in leadership, and possibly to also find space to meet the minority. We have had occasion to do that as a group. He's met us before. He's met us before. What's wrong with that? And the other day when we met, and the minority leader signaled, I mean, we were having some discussion, some conversation, and he said he wanted to raise with the president. The president came, he whispered to him, he held the president's hand. The two of them entered the room. They had some discussion. Corbyn has discussions with one-on-one with Theresa May. What is wrong with that? I'm surprised at us, because a minority leader engages the president and people instantly conclude, oh, it's a sellout. I think it's most obnoxious. And yet we are the same people crying that the winner takes all is not good. The president should have dialogue with the losers, or if I should say, the non-winners. Little space is created for the president to meet the minority leader, and it's a sellout. I can't understand this. No, let's be charitable to one another. The fact that the minority leader has met the president means that he has sold out. He hasn't. And if a matter comes up and is being discussed, and he wants maybe to state his side of the story to the president, what of that?
Talking about the president and the presidency, recently there's been a lot of talk about the number of staffers at the presidency. Of course, this is not a new conversation. Under ex-president and the late president John Evans Atamils, this came up. Under ex-president John Dramani Mahama, this conversation came up. The CDD Ghana, Center for Democratic Development, Imani Africa, have all had reason to question the number of staffers under the presidency. In fact, in a statement recently released by the CDD, they are asking Parliament to urge the presidency to review the numbers, to also demand, Parliament, demand the specific roles of some of these staffers, plus how much they are making. Is that something Parliament is going to do?
First of all, I don't doubt the principle that the CDD will want to establish. I want to believe that it's well-intentioned, but anything that Parliament does must be rooted in statute. What information that the President transmits to us with respect to the number of staffers, is it for informational purposes, or is it for Parliament to debate and offer recommendations?
He says, the CDD says it should not only be about information purposes. Parliament
that
should
is
actually...
That is why I'm talking about the statute. The law requires the presidency to submit this to the country, for the entirety of the country.
For informational purposes.
Through Parliament. Right? The law requires the president to do that, and he has done that. Now, going forward, can we as a Parliament take a position that, no, this number is too small to achieve what you want to do, or this number is too huge to achieve what you want to do, and that the nation is going to spend extra on them. We don't require this number, bring it down. Is Parliament clothed with the authority to do that? Look at the statute. So that is why I said, whereas I may agree with the principle, the statute should be the guiding principle. You know, some people have even said that the Constitution provides for a certain number for cabinet ministerial appointments, a maximum number, a minimum number. And some people say to us that to the extent that a sector minister is required to assist the president in governing the state efficiently, one, and two, that he should assist the president in evolving policies for that sector, that is the cabinet ministers, and to the extent that sector ministers pilot legislation which is foundationed on policy, to that same extent should the president then not be allowed to appoint ministers, the number of which would exceed 19. That makes some sense. Is that where we want to go? So that maybe plus the regional ministers, we're talking about a maximum of 19 plus 10 regional ministers. That would take it to 29. And then you can have deputy ministers. That is the thinking of some of them, of some people. I think in many of these things, and of course the number of Supreme Court justices, people say that Parliament should place a ceiling on them. I think as a nation we can further interrogate this. The current situation where people just say that, oh, but this president has a number, about 998.
Is it too much?
998, and so it is too much.
What do you think?
People are saying that, oh, but it appears too much because this government has made full disclosure. I hear people say that, oh, the previous administration had about 697. And so it's a huge difference, about 200 difference. And we should be careful. I hear people tell them that, oh, but the 697 is not entirely correct. The actual number really was 897 and not 697. And I believe the latter because the figures are here.
And is the number too much or not?
No, I'm making a point. 897. And I remember when the 897 came, some of us asked questions that number that they are giving us did not even include some known figures. And on the floor of the House, we raised these matters. That where are they? Not included in the numbers. And the explanation was that, well, they are part of government machinery, but the list that you have is presidential staffers and presidential advisors. They may not fall in these two categories, but they will still be in government machinery. Now, this one is not only about presidential staffers and advisors, it's about the entirety of the extra workforce that the president has introduced in the government.
Again, machinery. The CDD says that excuse is not tenable, and there should be a review. And that's one of the things that the Center for Democratic Development
the CDD is not saying that the full disclosure is bad.
Not at all, but I'm saying...
Good. So the issue that I raised and you saying that again the CDD does not agree with that, it's not correct.
The CDD is saying... But what is saying... Hold on for me, sir. The CDD is saying that there should be a review of the law such that some of these state agencies that fall under the presidency would, be merged into other ministries and agencies and not come under the Office of Government Machinery.
I tend to agree in part with what they are saying. This government has created some ministries that now operate under the presidency. For instance, monitoring and evaluation is under the presidency. So their staff will be captured there. You have the Minister of State in charge of procurement. their staff will be captured there. More or less, they operate as pseudo ministries. Their staff are captured there. Then you have the senior minister, right there. The president's special development initiatives. The staff will be captured.
One district, one factory secretariat, Ministry of Planning.
Yes. So all of them are there. I think that is what is bloating the number. Previously, we had these advisors and staffers. They would not individually then come with that coterie of staffers. So that is what is seemingly adding up. But I would say to us that much as I agree that that is what the CDD is saying, that maybe we should do the proper disaggregation. This one goes here. And if you want to know the remuneration, if people who are talking about remuneration, I think for purposes of transparency and accountability, why not?
Why not? You agree? You agree?
Why not? The point is, what I find hypocritical about those of them who are blowing whistles. What happened yesterday? Yesterday they cocooned themselves, hyper defensive. Today they are liberated. Oh, let's join the chorus. I don't agree with that. I think people should be principled, right, and go for what we believe in, not be changing the goalpost as and when you deem appropriate and as and when we deem fit. We should come together as a nation on this. And as I'm saying, I said that some people are even saying that even the number of ministers, we should come to some determination on that. The government, the number of deputy ministers, we should come to some determination on that. Of maybe justices of the Supreme Court, we should come to some determination on that. On the number, in that regard, on the number of presidential staffers, advisors, and so on, we can come to some determination on that. And then going forward, we'll then be able to say that yes, we cannot have a situation where maybe we can have more than maybe say 40 or 50 ministers, right? Plus deputies, everything, maybe it's not more than 60 or so. We can come to that determination as a country, so that if the optimum number is 60, no one then will go above it, regardless of the situation. Unless
what number would be ideal? What number would be ideal? President Akufo-Addo's decision to appoint 110 ministers and deputies generated a lot of controversy. What number, in your view, would be ideal in terms of
Akufo-Addo would be greatly criticized if at the end of the day the people are not able to add sufficient value to the quality of life of this country. If the 110, as you say, that we have, are able to add, at the end of the day, we are able to maintain GDP growth going forward, as happened last year. We are able to increase it significantly to the extent that under Akufo-Addo, we are growing GDP, let's say, at an average growth rate of 6%, 7%. Agriculture is boosting. And these factories are coming up strongly, adding value to the agro producers. People are in employment. I tell you, nobody will talk about 110 ministers. But if, on the other hand, the quality of life does not improve significantly, he will come under the gavel. That, what did these people achieve? So we have the positives and the negatives. Let's see at the end of 4 years.
Do you have an idea of what an ideal number could be? Because in successive governments there have been conversations again about, you know, the number of appointees, huge numbers. Recently 110 ministers, deputies. Should there be an ideal number? You have an idea of that?
It's something that we should have a conversation on as a country. But I think that we could derive the numbers from the Constitution. And I buy into those people's ideas who say that to the extent that a minister who comes with a bill to Parliament, who pilots any bill with Parliament, is supposed to formulate a policy. If you're not a cabinet minister, you have nothing doing with policy formulation. Right? And to that extent, people are saying that there is an imposition by the Constitution to the extent that you cannot have more than 19 cabinet ministers in much the same way, you cannot have more than 19 ministers manning the sectors. That then will call for maybe the coalescence of certain ministers, certain ministries, and creating desks in those areas for them. If you like to say that those ministers should be ministers of state within those ministries or deputy ministers, so be it. But I think it's something that we should have a national conversation on, so that that measuring rod is not only applied to the it's not applied only to the MPP, but all successive governments and administrations. To me, the too enforced has become too many.
On social media today, our president has gained a new title, a new nickname, King Promise. And that's simply because his critics say he has failed to, fulfill a number of the promises he made. In August 2017, President Akufo-Addo promised that by the end of last year, 51 factories would have been constructed. It will begin, actually. He also, prior to the 2016 general election, there was a promise of one village, one dam. Not even one dam has been constructed, according to his strictest, and from what we know. The provision of a national ID card, various timelines have been missed. We can go on and on. 110 ministers and deputies. This was supposed to be a decision that would deal with the slow pace of governance. In fact, he says he's a man in a hurry. Supersonic speed this year. We've not seen that, according to some Ghanaians.
Well, it takes one person to manufacture something, and then it will attract bees, right? I want to imagine that the King Promise title that you are saying, I have not heard it, would have been manufactured by one of the critics, and because maybe it's musical to you, you are quoting it to me. Tomorrow, many people, and I bet 99% of them will be from the opposition figures, would feed on it. It doesn't mean that they represent a huge segment of the society. That's number one. The second thing about some of the promises that you have alluded to, that he said by the close of the year, about 51 factories would have started. What do we mean by start? Would you mean would have been constructed? Certainly, that is not the import of it.
Only one we know at this point is in the incubation stage, a Kumfi factory, pineapple factory. We don't know of any other.
That is started.
That's not 51.
What is would have started? What does it mean?
How do you understand it?
If I want to start a farm, I'll go for maybe the land, right? You go for the land, you go for maybe the resources to begin farming. So one government says that by the close of year, 51 would have started. It didn't say would have started production. You, in your mind, you are configuring that when they say that you should see production. And yet that is not the case. However, I agree with you to some extent that by the close of 4 years of Akufo-Addo's regime, certainly, and I'm underlining all. I don't want you to tomorrow say that Mensah Bonsu said government was going to fulfill all its promises. They fulfilled 99%, they couldn't fulfill one, and then you take me to the cleaners. I haven't said so.
I'm not going to say Mensah Bonsu. Are you hopeful that government would have fulfilled all its promises?
We'll do our best. We'll do our best. We'll do our best.
All right, let's end the conversation with matters relating to your party, rather briefly on that. And one that immediately comes to mind, the suspension of the Gang of Three, or the Three Musketeers, as some call them, Paul Afoko, Sammy Crab, and Kwabena Japan. They were on indefinite suspension. The party was in opposition at the time. You are in power now. Is it not high time that decision be reversed?
Well, I'm not singularly, I'm not a party.
A key member of the national
any such decision should be taken by the entirety of the party, the group that approved of the suspension. The National Disciplinary Committee sat on this and submitted recommendations to the steering committee and then through to the National Executive Committee, which approved of it. So it's for them to have a consideration of it. However, let me say this. If you attend the church and you commit an offense and you are suspended by the church, usually they give a time frame that you are suspended for 6 months or 1 year or 3 months. If within that time you show recompense, you show remorse, you are suspended for 6 months, they could even bring it forward to say that no, what this man is doing, even when he had not been suspended, he wasn't doing this. Now there is a new enthusiasm and that has afflicted his soul. So let's bring him back. They could shorten the period of suspension. However, if they ask you to serve a 3-month suspension, and within that period, what steps that you take, it doesn't commend you to the church for them to bring you back. But you engage in activities that the church believes that you have not shown, not only have you not shown remorse, but it's like you don't care 2 hoots about the church anymore. They may perhaps even add to the suspension. What it is, that must be the acid test, is what they themselves have done, not the plea from some people.
Communist Japan, at least we know, says he sponsored some parliamentary candidates prior to the 2016 general election. He also decided not to take the matter to court, at least for Mr. Japan. Is there no reason?
Well, I don't want to comment on that, and I'll comment on maybe Afoko and Samekrab, because they found themselves in the same soup. And I'm saying, as the good book says, by their fruits ye shall know them. If they have borne good fruits, and on account of that, the party must bring them back, the fruits will demonstrate.
And finally, though, Mr. Samekrab, at least we know, is contesting for the party's national chairmanship position. By the party's rules, looking at his own peculiar situation as well, is he allowed?
What I would say, without prejudice to what determination the party may come up with, if you are suspended by the rules of the NPP, if you are suspended, you lose for the period under suspension. You lose all rights as a party member.
But he was suspended as a vice chair, not as a party member. Or that was not the case?
You are suspended as a member. You may be a vice chairman if you go against the rules of membership, but then suspended. Right? It cannot be that, oh, if you are a chairman and you do this, you'll be suspended. But if you are a member and you do this, you will not be suspended. So if you are suspended, the party's constitution provides that for executives, if you are suspended as an executive, or you are removed in that case from your position as a member of the executive for reasons of non-attendance, maybe you are not able to attend meetings, and because of that you are removed or suspended as a member of the executive, the constitution provides that in that case, when the time is due, you can re-offer yourself. It's the only place where the constitution says that if you are removed as an officer, you can come back. That's for reasons of non-attendance of meetings. In other cases, the constitution does not say so.
So in this case, Mr. Samekrab, you think is not allowed? For
the time that he is serving that suspension, if the suspension has ended, all entitlements will accrue to him, and he could. And that's why I'm saying that I'm making this statement without prejudice to whatever they may want to do. Because people should understand that it's not for nothing that the Constitution is written. And if you're a member of the party, you subject yourself to the Constitution. That is the clear language of the Constitution.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Osei Mensah Bonsu, Majority Leader in Parliament, also Minister in charge of Parliamentary Affairs, one of the longest serving members of Parliament in this country. Grateful for your time and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. But when you insist one of the longest serving member. The man wants to see my demise.
Grateful for your time.
Thank you very much once again.